And the second two lines of this prayer are stating our altruistic motivation or purpose for being here together to listen to these teachings, which is to say, we're going to listen to these teachings to think about the Buddha's view about reality, about life, about happiness, about suffering. Why? So we can develop our own amazing potential. Why? So we can help others. This is the idea. Thinking like this, okay? As I sing the prayer, think this. Sangye charang soke chognam la jancho baru dagni kyab suchi dagi chönyen gi personam ki drola penche sangye drupa shog sangye charang soke chognam la jancho baru dagni kyab suchi dagi chönyen gi personam ki drola penche sangye drupa shog Sangye charang soke chognam la jangcho badu dagni kyab suchi dagi chönyen gi personam ki drola penche sangye drupa shog. So we've had one or two classes, I think two, haven't we? Is this our third or our second? I can't remember. Somebody tell me. Diana, is it our third or our second? Two or three? Two. This is our second. Third. Okay, so I need to know from any of you who've been here before, I need to hear from you a summary of what we talked about last week, which shows to me you would have studied what we talked about. Because I can't remember. Clearly I didn't study it, so I need someone to tell me what we talked about last week. Who would like to put their hand up and dare to risk it? Somebody, come on. Of the 66 people present, who would like to tell me roughly what we talked about last week? Even one thing. Anybody? Be brave. Nobody. Okay, Fernando, what did we talk about last week? Come on. In essence. Speak. You've got to speak loud. I can't hear you.
He can't. He is translator now, so he can't. You can't hear him. He needs to turn off the translation then first.
But he's listening to my English, isn't he? He doesn't
yes.
Russian.
He now type into chat how to meditate.
So he can't speak.
He can. Since he's a translator, he can speak, but you can hear him only in a Spanish
channel. Okay,
Spanish channel, right?
So Fernando, how is he going to find a method to talk to me then? What method can he use?
I can just a second. I will cancel the translation and then I'll return to him again.
Thank you.
Yes, now he can speak
Good.
to you.
Speak to me. Speak to me,
yes,
Fernando. So what's the essence of what we talked about last week? Okay.
How to meditate. In Mahamudra, you spoke a little bit about Mahamudra, but mainly how to meditate. What should we do? How should we focus?
And what did I describe meditation as? What did I say meditation is? So what do you, another way, Fernando, another way to put the question, from what you have heard the last 2 weeks, what is your understanding of meditation, number one, and number two, why do we need to do it?
Is not that
Go on.
We're not trying to push away our thoughts, but try to recognize what comes in our mind.
No, this is only one kind of meditation, Fernando. What is meditation in general, and what's its purpose? In general, you're talking about a specific kind of meditation. In general, what is meditation? What are the two kinds of meditation, and why do we do it? Do you remember?
We do it to familiarize ourselves with virtue.
That's a good start. That's at least part of the definition. So the word in Tibetan, gom, to meditate, means to familiarize our mind with virtue and wisdom. So that's the broad definition of meditation, everybody. Okay, so in general then, what was the purpose of it? As a Buddhist, what is our goal? What are we trying to achieve, Fernando?
We're trying to reach enlightenment.
Good. The word Buddha. We're trying to become a Buddha, right?
Yes.
So the reason we want to familiarize our minds with virtue and wisdom is so we can become a Buddha. Right, okay. That's the broadest answer. That will do. So that's a good basis. Thank you very much. Good enough. Okay. So I think so far we've talked about, in general, the bigger picture, not just individual meditation techniques, but we've talked about the general approach, which is kind of important. because we have many cliched ideas, as Fernando indicated. There are many cliched ideas about what meditation is, in the world, the modern world. And the very narrow view is it's all about being mindful and making the thoughts go away, feeling better, an alternative to a pill, then or relaxation. None of those is the purpose of meditation, not the Buddhist view at all. That's naive and simplistic. So the broader idea, as Fernando just said, is the word gom in Tibetan is to familiarize. So familiarize your mind with what? Well, with virtue, with goodness, with morality, with ethics, with positive states of mind, one, and two, finally, also with wisdom. So when we understand that, the implication is at the moment we are familiar with non-virtue and ignorance. And that's what Buddha means by being in samsara. So the broader, bigger picture point of view of the general attitude of familiarizing your mind is a method for becoming a Buddha. So then specifically, there are specific formal techniques. There are formal techniques that we use to familiarize our mind. In the end, you should be familiarizing your mind with virtue and wisdom 24 hours a day. Not just when you've got your legs crossed and your eyes closed. That's simplistic and naive. But when you're on the toilet, when you're having sex with your new girlfriend, when you're in the pub having a beer, when you're having a fight with your boyfriend, when you're walking down the street. The job is, and that's why Mahamudra is very helpful, is to become conscious of what is going on in our mind so we can learn to navigate it and change it. That's what being a Buddhist is. So we do the formal techniques because it helps us, certainly in the morning and the evening, to have these different techniques so we can begin the day with a technique and end the day. That's helpful. But 24 hours a day when you should be familiarizing your mind with virtue and wisdom. This is the point. To think that it's only when you have your eyes closed and your legs crossed is absurd, But that's the cliched idea of meditation in the modern world. It's just mistaken. So as we've talked, the summary of meditation, the formal techniques, there are two modes, just two. And these we've heard about if we've read Buddhist teachings. In shamatha, in the Sanskrit words, the end result of the first one, and it's known in terms of its result, is known as shamatha. In English, calm abiding, which in fact is this brilliant psychological skill that these genius Indians more than 3,000 years ago invented, well before the Buddha. This incredible technique of being able to harness the crazy energy of our mind, completely get it under control, and go to a subtler level of mind where we can have this incredible, sophisticated, powerful, single-pointed focus. There's no equivalent in modern psychology. There is no equivalent state of mind, which is why we call it religion, which is ridiculous. It's psychology, and it's incredible technique. So the benefits of just that alone are unbelievable. Lama Yeshe talks about it in his Mahamudra book. But it's not the purpose. I mean, you're going to have single-pointed concentration. You'll be totally blissful. You'll be super clear. You'll have clairvoyance. You'll have amazing qualities just from shamatha. But that's not the point. They're like the bonus. The only reason for the Buddha to get single-pointed concentration is so that you can do the second mode of meditation and get insight into how things exist. That's wisdom. And familiarize your mind with virtue. So, I forget, Diana, did I ask you last time, is what's the term? The term in English, calm abiding, is the Russian a literal translation of that? Where's Diana? I can't see you. Well, the pictures keep changing. There she is. So there's nod.
Yeah, actually, no. We in Russian we say one pointed focus.
Who's talking?
Enfoque.
Oh, that's the Spanish. Okay. Oh, so you say one-pointed concentration, one-pointed.
Yes. We say that.
See.
Yeah.
Because technically, calm abiding is the name of the technique and is the name of the result. But one-pointedness, I think, is slightly, never mind, but it's good enough. It's because that's more accurate. It's good. That's good. Okay. That's good. Okay. So the reason to get that, like I said, is to use it in the second mode. And the term you use in Russian for special insight, is it a literal translation? Did we discuss this term before?
No, we didn't. I don't think it's.
What do you say in Russian?
Insight, it's more or less literal, and it's not very, very good. It's it needs explanation.
Good. Okay. So there's no. I think I might have discussed this. Is there no equivalent in daily life of the term insight? We have it in English. No.
Insight.
Insight.
Like, yeah, we say something. So
when you understand something, you say you have an insight. Isn't it?
Yes, we have a verb, so
Good,
I use this verb.
Okay. So that's important. So the second type of meditation is where you do the real work. That's the real work. That's the work of becoming a Buddhist. The first mode is just getting the concentration, which has good benefits, but we get so caught up in that we forget the purpose of it. The only reason to get single point of concentration is so you can use your laser-like focus to then unpack and unravel the mind and reality and all the teaching, so you can understand them experientially. The word insight in English is very good. Insight, inner seeing. You understand something with your mind. You know, you have a problem and you think about it, you say, oh, I've got a bit of insight into that. So we use it in daily life. It's a very good word. So special insight is referring to insight into emptiness, the ultimate wisdom. But we've got to get insight into everything. So what's Buddha's teachings? Whatever Buddha's teachings are, we've got to get insight into those. That means the teachings about karma, the teachings about the mind, the teachings about all Buddhist psychology, all Buddhist metaphysics, all Buddhist philosophy. We've got to get insight into all of this. That's what being a Buddhist actually means. You're not just sitting there watching your breath, you know. So the reason for these formal meditations is so that we can, so there's another way of presenting it, another way of presenting the purpose of all these meditation techniques, and we'll do another couple today. There's different little flavors. We get a flavor of these different techniques. They all fit into these two modes. There are hundreds of techniques, but they all fit into these two modes, okay? So the other way of presenting why we need to meditate, some of the meditation techniques, the formal techniques, are really powerful for purification, and some of these formal techniques are really powerful for what they call creating merit. This is just the terms they use in Buddhism, you know, these ancient Indian terms. So purification, the analogy, you know, the Buddha talks about karma very much in terms of seeds and fruits. He uses the analogy of seeds and fruits. So he's saying every millisecond of what we think and do and say leaves seeds in our mind, leaves an imprint in our mind, leaves a tendency in our mind, right? And every negative action leaves a negative tendency, and that seed will eventually ripen in the future as our suffering. And every positive action leaves a positive seed that will ripen in the future as our happiness at different levels, you know, of suffering and different levels of happiness. This is just the logic of how Buddha talks. So our job is to pull out the rubbish seeds, purify that's what purification means. We've got to try and put atomic bombs under the negative seeds and the negative tendencies. And we've got to try and grow the flowers. And that means create virtue, create merit. So very much a function of these different formal techniques is to achieve one or other of these, you know. So far, I think we've talked about, we've looked at the classic concentration technique. The Buddha taught at the very beginning, you need an object to focus on, and the object, the very simple one, is the breath. Another one we discussed is a more sophisticated practice, but it's the same principle. It's to pay attention to the mind, not the breath, but the mind, and that's got a particular powerful function. Lama Yeshe talks about this in his marvelous book called Mahamudra, How to Discover Our True Nature. And it's actually a meditation on emptiness. But the first part of the meditation is simply concentration meditation, but the object we concentrate on is the breath, is the mind, not the breath. So I think we might have done that for a few minutes. So there's many things you can focus on. In the Tibetan tradition, we also very much, a classic object of our concentration is a visualization of the Buddha. Now, this is said to have much more power than watching your breath, because the power of enlightened beings is so extraordinary. Just by focusing our mind on it, by imagining it, that leaves a very powerful imprint in our mind because of the power of enlightened beings. So that's a very typical one in Tibetan. So of course in Tantra, that's absolutely the method, you know. In the Tantric methods, the techniques, practices, the same two modes of meditation apply. So if you're not going to do we'll do one of these, we'll do these meditations, you know, we'll do a purification technique, and we'll do an example of one of the tantric techniques. We'll visualize the Buddha Tara. So these are both in the second mode, where we're trying to get insight. We use our focus, and we focus on a visualization. So the purification practice, your first step is you do the focus, and then the second mode where you're using analysis, because that's the method. Huh? What? No, nothing. So in the second mode, okay, there's two modes of meditation. One is concentration. No thoughts. The aim is not to engage in thoughts. The aim is not to be discursive. The aim is not to have thoughts, but it's to focus the mind so you begin eventually to steady the mind. That's the goal, long term. So the second mode, insight, is the purpose of all of it. You've got to have a focused mind in order to then use the method of either visualization or analysis. That's the method you use, and what it triggers is the insight. So the insight is the end result. So in other words, how you do an insight meditation is by using analysis. So as you might know, if you've studied the Lam Rim, you've heard the term analytical meditation. So again, this gets us very confused because we have these misconceptions about the word meditation. But when we understand what it means in Tibetan is to familiarize. The verb to meditate is the verb to familiarize. Then it makes us more spacious. So what are we familiarizing our mind with? Well, it's kind of straightforward. And if you think of this in ordinary life, you'll understand my point. So if you're learning math and you're a little girl, 5 years old, and you go to school, you're 4 years old and you go to school, and your teacher explains to you that 1 + 1 is 2. Now, you've never heard this before. It's new information for you. So she says, go home and do your homework, Robina. Now, if she were a Buddhist, what she'd say is like this. She'd say, Robina, take this information, be accurate, write it down, take it home, and then you sit down, and first you go and do the first mode of meditation. You get some concentration to whatever degree you can, and then you use that concentrated mind to go to the second mode, and now I want you to take this information, and I want you to think about it. I want you to analyze it. And what will happen is, after the analysis, you'll go, oh, Mummy, I understand. So that's what meditation is, but we don't think that with mathematics, but that's you think about it, that is how we learn everything. We just don't call it meditation, that's all. You're playing the violin, you learn a new piece, you go home, you've got to close the door, you've got to tell your brothers and sisters to leave you in peace, you've got to get some focus, and then with that focused mind, you can now go to the second mode where you open up your music, you get your violin, and you familiarize yourself with this information, and you practice it until eventually you go, oh, now I get it. That's what we're trying to do here. So we're trying to familiarize our mind with what? We're trying to analyze what? The Buddha's teachings. Impermanence, karma, emptiness, compassion, all the teachings in the entire Buddhist path. They are the basis of the things. They are the things you want to familiarize your mind with. But we mystify this so much we get so confused, So analytical meditation is a fancy word for the term to think about something. That's what you do when you study math. You don't sit there like this and go, 1 + 1 is 2, 1 + 1 is 2, 1 + 1 is 2, hoping something will happen. That's superstitious. You get your concentration, you go to the second mode, you get the information, you've written it down, 1 + 1 is 2. And this is a really important point. If you don't understand the meaning of those concepts, you can't do it. You just don't go 1 + 1 is 2, hoping some light will come in your mind. You've got to understand what 1 means. You've got to understand what plus means. You've got to understand what equals means. And you've got to understand what 2 means. And you put them all together, and that's called intelligence. That's called thinking. That's called analysis. That's how you realize emptiness. That's how you realize impermanence. That's how you realize karma. And that's how you realize mathematics. There is no difference, but we just don't use the terms that the medieval Tibetans have used. So we mystify it as some mystical religious idea. We're so ridiculous, It's not complicated. So to do that insight, to do that analysis, you've got to have some concentration. If your mind is all over the place, you can't think of anything. By the time you go 1+, you've forgotten what you've done. Then it's absurd. So concentration is the tool you use to then get insight by using analysis. That's the logic. And that's how that's the methods we use from here to Buddhahood. So don't mystify these terms. They're really down to earth. And when you understand them in this down to earth way, it'll be a revelation for you instead of mystical, Oh, I've got to do analytical meditation on impermanence. I don't know what that means. Oh, I've got to meditate on death. I don't know what that means. We're so ridiculous. It's just very simple. It's logical. It's how we learn everything. You use your brain, But with concentration. Otherwise, you're useless. It's so clear. And Buddha happens to be pretty brilliant at this concentration technique. That's unique to the Buddha. He got it from these Hindus. They're the ones who invented this. There's no equivalent in modern psychology or neuroscience. None. Nothing like it. It's incredible. It's ingenious. And only now in the modern world, the last 50, 60 years, are we learning about this incredible, Indian and Buddhist knowledge. It's amazing, So the two modes of meditation, one is concentration, which is not the point. It's got bonus results. You'd be an incredible being if you had it, but it's the only reason to have that is so you use it in a laser-like way to unpack and unravel the different components of all the teachings from A to Z, to familiarize your mind with it until eventually it's experiential. That's the point. It goes from your head to your heart. That's the point. That's the point. So that's why we have to listen to the teachings. Dalai Lama always tells us, we must listen to the teachings. But our trouble in the modern world, we've got this schizophrenic distinction between meditation and listening to teachings. People say, oh, I just want to meditate. I don't want to listen to teachings. That's too intellectual. Then we don't understand the purpose of meditation. We have no idea what we're talking about, So it's important to understand this. So the classic concentration techniques is one you pay attention to the breath. In the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, we concentrate on the image of the Buddha. So that means instead of using conceptual stories, you're using visual, but it's the same method. It's the second mode of meditation. The mind is being discursive, but it's being more visual. And you're using your memory. You've got to remember what Tara looks like. Her eyes are this way, her mouth is that way. You try and recall the image that you've seen in a picture or a statue, and you get that image vivid in your mind. And of course, the deeper your concentration, the clearer and more vivid the image. So because this is such a fundamental part of Tibetan Buddhism, even though it's Tantra, let's talk about this now and why these techniques are so powerful. So from this perspective, if we're looking at the analysis mode, the second mode, the insight mode, there are two ways of doing it. One is using literally concepts, which is the analysis of impermanence, karma, emptiness, compassion. You unpack and unravel the misconceptions and use wisdom to argue with them. That's the method, the classic method in the sutra techniques of using analysis to trigger insights. In the tantric part, and because that's so integrated into the Tibetan Buddhist approach, then the second mode of meditation, the analysis, the insight, is instead of concepts, we use visualization. So then we think, well, what's the benefit of that? We can see some benefit of thinking about emptiness because we'll get the meaning, but what's the point of visualizing some green lady or some orange guy with a sword above his head, or some, or Chenrezig looking very sweet with 4 hands? It's just so mystical and definitely very kind of foreign to us. So we think, what on earth are those meditations about? Well, the key to understanding that is to understand karma. The Buddhist view, fundamental view of karma, is that every millisecond of what we think and do and say leaves imprints in our mind. It leaves the memory of that in our mind. So even right there, we can see the advantage of visualizing the Buddha. So think of Shakyamuni Buddha, and that's a sutra aspect of the Buddha. And that's a very typical meditation. For example, in Lama Yeshe's Mahamudra book, one of the practices to develop, he has a little meditation on Shakyamuni Buddha. So, and these are very creative. People often like these meditations, but we've got to understand the meaning of them and the purpose of them and the benefit. And the key, as I said, to understand the benefit is because whatever we think and do and say, none of it goes astray. It's not just, I think in our culture, in modern world psychology and in psychology, we think of the mind as this private little kind of secret world that I live in, that I can do whatever I like with. I can have all these fantasies. I can imagine having sex with a new boyfriend. I can imagine taking all this. I can imagine, we have imagination. We use it in a most radical way. So we think as long as no one else knows about it, it's my secret and it doesn't have any effect. This is very, very powerful. Lama Zopa says, and this seems very shocking, but this is what the point is. Lama Zopa says the vast majority of all humans on this planet have absolutely no idea that what goes on in their mind plays any role at all in their lives. Now, if we hear this seems quite shocking, but this is really very deeply the way we think about our mind. We think our mind is very secret. As long as no one knows what's going on in our mind, we think it doesn't matter. We say, I can think what I like. So, if we analyze this, it's quite powerful. This is extremely nihilistic. It's a bit like saying, using the analogy of seeds and fruits, which is the way Buddha talks about karma. If you have a handful of seeds and you just drop them in the earth, you can say, I'm allowed to sow whatever seeds I like. Well, you are, but every seed you plant will bring results. So if you've got lots of poison seeds, they will bring the consequence of poison fruits in your garden. And you have to, in other words, it's logical that if you want to be a good gardener, you have to understand botany. You have to understand that bad seeds bring poison fruits and good seeds bring flowers and herbs. So you have to make a decision what you want in your garden in the future. And that decision determines the seeds you plant. Well, that's exactly the view that Buddha has about the mind. And it's not how we think. We don't think there are consequences. We don't think there are results in oneself of the thoughts we have. So, if we're sitting there all day being angry or having incredible, you're in love with your girlfriend's boyfriend, we think, I'm allowed to think that. No one says I can't. I remember one time, this is very fascinating, because we think there are no consequences. Consequences means results, that's all. Doesn't mean like punishment or reward. And the Buddha's point is every tiny thought we have, none of it goes astray. Every one will sow seeds, and every one of those seeds will bring fruits. Fruits to whom? Forget about the external world, but fruits to myself. It produces the person I become. So when we can begin to understand karma, it transforms our lives. We're going to be watching our mind like a hawk. Who would want to have negative seeds? Because that's going to ripen as a tendency to keep being angry, or let's say it's the thought of killing somebody because you're so mad at them. And you fantasize killing, like in a video game, you fantasize killing. Well, that will bring forth results if it's serious in your mind. If you're seriously thinking of killing and really want to kill, that'll bring the result of a tendency to keep killing. That'll bring the result of you getting killed. It'll bring all these other results in your mind. It's so powerful, and eventually it will lead you to do the killing. It's pretty logical. The thoughts, as Lama Zopa says, everything exists on the tip of the wish. The thought is the first step in everything. We don't get that in our culture. We're quite schizophrenic. We're quite disconnected from our own mind. And we keep it private because we think it's all my business and it doesn't matter. I'm allowed to think what I like. That really is nihilistic. So in order to understand the benefit of visualizing a Buddha, you've got to understand how karma works. It's not just something fantasy of some gorgeous green lady and then you walk out the door. Every second of that meditation, what you're familiarizing your mind with, instead of anger and killing, you're familiarizing your mind with the Buddha. You're buying into the meaning of that Buddha. You're familiarizing your mind with those qualities, and then you will become that. It's so logical. This is the meaning of karma. Every thought produces what we become, and then the servants of our mind, the body and the speech, they carry out the wishes of the mind, and that's what makes things so powerful, whether they're negative or positive. So by understanding karma, everything that we do in practice makes much more sense, because these views we have of the mind are quite nihilistic, quite bizarre actually. It's quite extraordinary. It needs thinking about. So we spend all day using our creative imagination. It's another way of saying visualizing. Imagining. If I'm mad at my boyfriend, I spend hours with perfect concentration and perfect visualization. Think about it. We say, oh, I can't concentrate. We say, oh, I can't visualize. Rubbish. We do it all day. If I'm really mad at my boyfriend, I have perfect concentration. I could be in the middle of the football field with 100,000 people screaming. I don't have to tell people to be quiet. I'm trying to concentrate on killing my boyfriend. I've got single-pointed concentration. Think about it, because you're so angry. Nothing will disturb your mind. You've got really good concentration. And then second, you're visualizing exactly doing that. Or if you're in love with your new boyfriend, you've got single-pointed concentration and you've got perfect visualization of exactly what he looks like, how you're going to do this together, how you're going to do that together. That's concentration and that's visualization. So we are very familiar with it. So here, we're trying to use it, though, to familiarize ourselves with the Buddha. Why? Because I want to become a Buddha. Because every thought counts. Then it's a powerful meditation. And because, you see, all the lamas say, because of the power of enlightened beings. So let's look at again, what is an enlightened being? What's a Buddha? Let's analyze this. Let's be clear what it means. Well, the word Buddha, I can't see anything. The sun goes across for another half an hour. So the word Buddha which is the end result of all this work, we become one. The word Buddha is the real Buddha, actual Buddha, ultimate Buddha, absolute Buddha, as they say, is the word referring to the all-knowing, all-compassionate, all-wise, unmanifest, all-pervasive consciousness. So it's a bit like the concept of God. Really, it's very similar. I know as a little girl, I was in love with God. I was a Catholic. I wanted to be a nun. I wanted to be a priest first, but they told me I was not a boy, so I couldn't be a priest. So I thought, okay, I'll be a nun. And I remember I loved going to Mass. I was in love with God. I knew all the Mass in Latin. I was just in love with God, in love with the God. And I used to love the idea of God is everywhere. Well, this is very interesting. And it seems to me over the centuries, different religions, different philosophies and different cultures, we often come up with similar ideas, So the Buddha is similar. So I remember one time, in Melbourne in Australia where I was born, a couple of years ago, I was invited by the Catholic University there to give a talk in this conference. I had a 20-minute slot to talk about something. And I remember when I got there that morning, I didn't know what to talk about still. So I looked up the dictionary and I looked up the definition of God. So I found there are 3 qualities of God. Omniscience, which is perfect wisdom that sees everything as it is, infinite compassion, and infinite power. Well, I thought, well, that's interesting. They're the 3 qualities of a Buddha. So it seems to me, Buddhists and Christians have many similar ideas. The difference is, though, huge, that the Christians call that energy uncaused, which is impossible for the Buddha. Nothing can be uncaused, it's nonsense. And the Christians say that that's the source of the universe, as a creator. Well, Buddha says every being can become a Buddha. Those qualities are the natural potential of every one of us. And secondly, we don't need creating. It's a bizarre idea for the Buddha that someone can create you. So they're very different interpretations. So anyway, my talk, and I don't know if the Christians liked it, was the similarity between the definition of God and Buddha. So I gave a 20-minute talk on that. So it's very interesting. So Buddha, actual Buddha, by the time you become a Buddha, you don't need a body. You don't need a bag of bones. That's due to karma. That's due to negativity. Your mind is pure, unmanifest, all-pervasive, all-knowing, all-compassionate. That's Buddha. That's the meaning of Buddha. But because a person who's become a Buddha has been driven by compassion for countless lifetimes, which means to want to benefit others, you don't just sit in the sky blissing out as the Buddha. You have to manifest your mind in bodies. So in Tibet, in Sanskrit, the Buddha mind is known as the Dharmakaya, truth body. They call it that. And then there's the Rupakaya, the form body in which that mind manifests that can benefit sentient beings. We can't see the mind of the Buddha. We can see a body, though. So there's 2 of those. Now, one of them is Shakyamuni Buddha, or any human being looking like us. So at the time of the Buddha, if you walked around and met the Buddha, you wouldn't recognize the Buddha. He looked like all these other sadhus walking around India with their yellow robes on. You wouldn't have known which was the Buddha and which not, But that's why you have to check up on him, who he is. So that's the relative Buddha. That's the form in a human form that you and I can see. But there's another form the Buddha manifests in, and that first one's called the Nirmanakaya, or emanation body. So now then you've got one that's called the Sambhogakaya, or enjoyment body. Now that's in Tantra. That's why we get very confused in the West. We see all these, in the modern world. So there's thousands of them. So if you have a little family tree, at the top you've got, Dharmakaya, the mind of the Buddha. Then you go down and you've got the Rupakaya, form body. And under that you have 2. One of the forms is Nirmanakaya, which is the emanation body, and that's the one that you and I can see, like Shakyamuni Buddha, for example. Or you can argue, let's say Dalai Lama. We all know that everyone says Dalai Lama is a Buddha. I don't know, but they say that. So he'd be an example of that. In a human form, looking like you and me, because we can communicate. That's the Nirmanakaya, or Shakyamuni Buddha. Then across you have in the Vajrayana, in Tantra, you have the other one, which is more subtle, and this is called the enjoyment body, or the Sambhogakaya. And that can only be cognized by the Arya Bodhisattvas. In other words, those Bodhisattvas who've cognized emptiness. They can see that form of the Buddha at a subtle level. So, for example, Tsongkhapa, our lineage Lama from the 14th century, the Gelugpas, he had his own teaching. He received teachings directly from Manjushri in a subtle light body. He was so highly realized, So that one of those in Tantra, the main tantric aspect, is Vajradhara, or they call in Tibetan Dorji Chung. Okay? Then under him, there are 5 Buddha families. As we know, Amitabha, Akshobhya, and 5 of them. And each of these, and this is the point about Tantra, each of these is a manifestation of a purified aspect of the delusions. So Tantra is more sophisticated psychology. If you look at Shakyamuni Buddha, he represents, if you look at his form, completely subdued, he represents subdued body, speech, and mind. So he is the manifestation of the first stages of practice, of the first stages of the Lamrim. Subdued body, subdued speech, subdued mind. That's the energy of all the practice in the first stages. But the Bodhisattva path is more radical. And then in the Tantric aspect, you have Vajradhara or Dojijang in Tibetan. He's the Tantric aspect of Shakyamuni. And he's in the Bodhisattva style, looking gorgeous with, blue body, with gorgeous silken robes and dressed up beautifully in this gorgeous Bodhisattva aspect. So that's from the Tantric philosophy, Tantric psychology. Then under him, as I said, the 5 Buddha families. Then under the 5 Buddha families, all the other millions of Buddhas. And every single one of them is a manifestation of a particular quality, either that we have to cultivate, like wisdom and compassion, or they're manifestations of a purified aspect of a delusion that we want to purify. So it's a more sophisticated psychology, and all of this is psychology. That's the meaning of it. So when we understand that, so for example, they've got Manjushri. Manju in Sanskrit, gentle voice. Jamyang in Tibetan. Shri is like Lord. So he's the manifestation of wisdom. He's got a sword in his right hand, holding it aloft, cutting through ignorance. So he represents wisdom. Then you've got Chenrezig, Avalokitesvara. White light body, 4 hands, and he is the manifestation of compassion. Now the fact is, if you looked at this orange person with a sword in his hand, nobody will know by looking at it that it means wisdom. In the same way that if you show me the Russian word, or even the English word, for me who speaks English, I see the word wisdom for the first time, it doesn't tell me what it means. I have to learn it. Well, it's the same here. It doesn't show, Manjushri doesn't sort of say to me, I'm the Buddha of wisdom, Robina. I've got to learn it. I've got to understand that meaning, and I've got to buy into that meaning. In the same way, the English word wisdom, those 6 letters put together, when I learn the meaning, I've got to learn it. This is proving dependent arising. So I buy into the meaning of it. Well, this is a visual language. All these Buddhas are a visual language, and each of them is like a mirror image of what we want to accomplish. So, for example, in the highest tantric practices, in the Amitabha family, and Amitabha, the 5 Buddha families, he's a manifestation of purified attachment energy. So Vajrayogini is an example of this gorgeous red naked lady, and she's a complete visual manifestation of purified attachment. So by meditating on her, that helps you purify your attachment. This is the way these meditations work. They're brilliant psychology. On the face of it, it doesn't look like psychology to us. It just looks like weird Indian paintings, But you've got to understand the meaning of it, like anything. Then you buy into that meaning, and then you get such benefit from meditating on these Buddhas. Because you're visualizing the Buddha in front of you. You're imagining those qualities and all the different variations in the different practices. You visualize outside, then you visualize coming into you, and then you visualize becoming oneness with that. You purify, you visualize, I am now Vajrayogini. This is a method for becoming a Buddha. It's said to be so potent, so delicious, so marvelous, But you've got to understand the logic of it. And it's all psychology. Don't think of it as religion. It's psychology. It's very powerful. So you can watch your breath for 1,000 years. You'll get some concentration, but you're not, just thinking of the Buddha, not to imagine visualizing the Buddha, not to imagine becoming the Buddha. This is like billions of times more powerful, billions of times more purifying, billions of times faster to get to Buddhahood. So this is why in the Tibetan tradition, visualizing and meditating on in order to become the Buddha is said to be the brilliant method. And this is explained this is the second mode of meditation, based on your concentration, which is the first mode. I hope that all makes sense. I think we have to ask questions about that before we continue. Are there any questions in the chat box, please? About this particular point, and if there aren't, I want you to think about questions, because there's a lot of misconceptions about this idea. And as usual, I speak fast, so maybe Danyana can speak fast as well. So I'd like you to ask questions about this, please. Maybe we'll have a break in a minute, and you can ask me questions about visualization. I said it all very quickly, but it's important you understand it logically. The psychology of it. Okay. Were there any other questions there, Diana? Any questions at all? I have to blow my nose, excuse me. Are there any other questions, Diana? Please, my dear. No?
¿Me puedes traducir?
At what stage of concentration can we start a visualization of Buddha?
Oh, this is a very good question.
Вот очень хороший вопрос от Ольги. На какой...
If you've done concentration for one day, and of course you're familiar with the teachings from the earlier stages, then you can do concentration on Tara after that. But so to the degree that you've got concentration, plus the understanding of the teachings, to that degree you can visualize Tara. You'll only visualize a little bit. So as you progress in your teachings, as you progress in your knowledge, as you progress in your concentration, so you will progress in your visualization. It'll get better and better, won't it? So this is Tantra, and it's the most advanced level. So clearly the first day you meditate, some people have a familiarity and a real liking of these meditations, and they feel very comfortable, even if they've heard no other teachings. But traditionally this is taught later. You learn first, the first stages of practice and so on. But in general, the degree you have concentration is that degree to which you can do anything. You don't wait till you've got concentration before you do these practices. You do it according to your own capacity. I hope that helps. Good question. Another question. Pamela, to everyone.
Yes, there's another question. Another one is from Dinara. She just says that she has a question, but she didn't put it down. But there's another in English. Why Buddha's images play such a big role if the Buddha himself didn't have any?
Sorry, any what?
Any image. Why Buddha images play such a big role if the Buddha himself didn't have any image?
You mean Buddha at the time in India? Is that what
you имеете в виду Будда во времена Индии, да?
You mean like that? You mean Shakyamuni Buddha, the monk who lived in India 2,500 years ago? Didn't he have images? I have no idea. Did he not have? But what's wrong with an image? Just because Buddha didn't have one, why does it mean it's not valid? Can you answer that question, please? The person. I'm putting the question back to you. Can you answer? The person who asked the question. Do you have any answer to that? I'm just wondering what you think. No? No answer? Diana? Okay, if you have
she didn't come up with that.
Okay, that's fine, no worries. No problem. Well, if you have an answer, that's great.
There's more questions.
No, I know that, but I want to answer this question yet. I've got to still answer this question.
Okay.
So that's fine. So the point is, though, I would suggest that because Buddha didn't do it, it doesn't mean it's not valid. But the second part is that all the Mahayana teachings, which were given in a secret form, not in the regular form, they are all about visualization. And the great Bodhisattvas can visualize the Buddha in the Sambhogakaya form in their mind. That's all coming from Buddhist teachings. All the teachings in Tantra, all the Mahayana Sutra teachings, and all the Hinayana teachings are all coming from the Buddha at different levels. So certainly at different levels, Buddha did use images. Absolutely. But the second one is, I would even say, if you can't see evidence of it from Shakyamuni Buddha's time, that there was an image of him, it doesn't follow that that's not appropriate. I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't suggest. It's not, it's helpful. So the benefit, the huge benefit of all these meditations, especially in Tantra, is that that's the method for becoming that Buddha yourself. It's very powerful, That's my answer. And if you would like to ask me some questions based on that, you're very welcome. What other questions, Diana?
Yeah, there's more questions. Can we... There's a lot of questions, so there's a quick... Are details very important when we visualize?
Well, put it this way. Okay, good point. If you are trying... sorry.
Los detalles son importantes.
If you are trying to play tennis... I don't know if you have any Russians, but let's think of Federer, the German fellow, the Austrian, whatever he is. Let's think of Federer. No, Swiss. He's Swiss, right. If you want to play tennis and you're going to watch Federer on a video and you're going to ask me the questions, Robina, are details important? I think what a silly question. If they're not important, why bother? You can play tennis as you wish, you can make it up. But the only reason you have Federer in the video is to show you exactly how to hold your racket, to show you exactly how to hit the ball. Details are everything. The end result of something, the big picture, is the result of all the details. So in everything, that's dependent arising. Details are fundamentally important. Absolutely. Otherwise it's just chaos. Otherwise it's just nihilism. Think about that. Go on, next.
When we visualize Buddha, we tend to just visualize his image, and we can forget about his qualities.
Well, again, that's a bit nihilistic. If you're trying to visualize Federer, you
Yes,
mean
we
you just
starting-
want you just want to visualize his picture, but not know what he means? That's kind of nihilistic, isn't it? Of course, you've got to know what if you learn to know what Buddha means, and the fact is every single tiny thing that Buddha does, holding his hand this way, doing this, they all have meaning. It's a visual language. So necessarily you've got the details clear, but then of course you have to know also the meaning. But when you're visualizing itself, you try to get the picture clear. That's the point. And then you concentrate on that picture without any analysis. But as you grow more knowledge, you get a deeper and deeper understanding of the meaning of that visualization. So while you're just doing the visualization, you're focusing on the shape, and then you concentrate on that with no discursive thought, Another one. Another question. Diana.
Can we practice in daily life keeping the visualization in mind, and will this support our formal practice?
Would you say that again, please, Diana? I didn't quite hear it.
If we practice in daily life, keeping the visualization in mind all the time, and will this support our formal practice?
That's a very good question again. Thank you. So,
Очень хороший.
So if we have taken an empowerment in Tantra, then that means formal permission to do the practices. And some of these practices you can do without permission, like Tara, like Shakyamuni, like Chenrezig, but more advanced ones like Vajrayogini, you can't practice that until you've received the empowerment. So then the point is, at that level, when you've taken the various tantric vows, we have a commitment, and this is part of tantric practice, we have a commitment to think of ourselves all day as Vajrayogini, to look at everybody in the world as deities. So the people who are ugly, you see them as wrathful deities. The people who are delicious to you, you see them as peaceful deities. You have a commitment to see the entire universe as a pure land, and you have a commitment to see all sounds as mantra. This is a whole approach in tantric philosophy. There's two things we're trying to do. In general, we're seeing it all as empty of intrinsic nature, but we're also trying to lift our mind from the mundane view, which is how we live now, to a more sublime, transcendental view. So that's our commitment. And if you can do that every second, wow, that's amazing. No question. No question. Yes, definitely. What else, Diana?
Venerable, please, can we explain in more detail what do you mean by visualization? How do you recommend to develop this kind of
good.
skill?
Easy, yes.
If it's difficult.
Yeah, easy. Start with Shakyamuni Buddha. So you would look at a statue, you would look at a picture, you would learn, this is important, these paintings, we think of art, I think, in our modern culture, and that's fine, as just arbitrary, I can make up whatever I like, that's fine. But these pictures, as I said to you, it's like a visual language. So if it's going to be a language that you have to communicate with other people with, you better have a common language. So Shakyamuni Buddha is the detailed descriptions of every tiny way he looks, holding this, his eyes this way, his mouth this way, his leg that way. It is a visual language. So we learn it to the best of our ability. The meaning of it is, it's highly sophisticated. So you learn, first of all, you just learn, you see the picture. And you try to visual in your mind, you remember it, you look at the picture, you look at the statue, you close your eyes, and you try to paint the picture in your mind. That's visualization. And as you become more familiar with it, and there's many levels of these practices, many levels. This is the method, as I said, of becoming that Buddha. There's a whole process to it. So you start where you are. You literally visualize. You see green Tara. She's holding this, she's got that, she's her leg this way, her face that way, her eyes this way. You remember it, and then you visualize. Just like you're loving your boyfriend. You're in love with your boyfriend. You look at him. In your mind, you're visualizing him perfectly. Exactly like he is. You can't keep your mind off him. That's visualization. Because that's driven by attachment, so it's easy. And the reason, the benefit is, remember, back in karma is everything we see, think, do, say, imagine leaves a seed in our mind. So if it's the Buddha we're trying to imagine and we're buying into the meaning of that Buddha, this is a method for becoming that Buddha. That's it, exactly. Like if you're a designer, think about it. You're a designer. You're a designer of dresses. You don't just sit there out of the blue and start writing. You're visualizing it all the time, and you can't wait to put it down on paper. That's visualization. But here we're trying to visualize the Buddha so we can become the Buddha, so we can become oneness with that energy. That's the purpose. It's logical if we think about it. Just we mightn't think of it as visualization. It's just using your imagination, you know. But it's a precise one. Just like if you're trying to build a building, you need the details exactly. You visualize exactly, then you have the exact details, you know. Details and the big picture have to come together. Diana, what else?
Well, there's also a question, do we maybe need first have image, but you answered already that.
Good.
Then what can we do with laziness? Because sometimes
good question.
I cannot just put up with that with any motivation. I just can't do anything.
I hear you. Everybody in the world understands this one. This is our worst. Yeah, this is our worst crime to ourselves. So let's talk about laziness, okay? It's very brutal. It's taught actually in the Bodhisattva path as the fourth of the 6 perfections of the Bodhisattva. And the fourth perfection, it's called enthusiasm or joyful effort. Well, it sounds very lovely, but if we frame it in terms of the opposite, it becomes very clear. And the opposite is called laziness. And there's different levels of laziness. And we all will recognize these, and these are our main obstacle. But let's look at the logic of why. So first of all, the first kind of laziness is called, I can't be bothered. Now let's analyze this. This is one we all recognize. Let's analyze this one. It's very powerful, the logic of it. What is the thing we can't be bothered doing? Think about it. It's the thing that demands effort. And what's the thing that demands effort is the thing you don't know how to do. So anything you don't know how to do, you've got to push yourself, don't you? You've got to push yourself. You've got to make effort to even try to do it. And it's really difficult. Now, this is our first level, grossest level of laziness. And what's the cause of this? Think about it. Attachment. So the deepest, most kind of gross level of attachment we all have is attachment to be comfortable. Attachment to be comfortable. So we will do things we are familiar with. We know how to cook, we know how to do this, and we do them easily because we're familiar with them. There's no effort. And of course, all the things that are related to attachment, we are very good at. We don't need to make effort to get our chocolate. We don't need to make effort to find the boyfriend because we know, and this is what the Lamas say, when you know the benefits of something, you will make effort. So mostly we are now perfecting the effort to get what attachment wants. That's samsara. So the degree that we've got attachment, the degree to which we've made effort to get what we want with attachment, because we know the benefits, is the degree to which we don't want to go outside our comfort zone. And that means we don't want to go against attachment. Even just think of the gym, going to the gym. You want to lose weight. You have a picture of a friend who's looking divine with their tough, gorgeous looking muscles, and you get all excited, you get enthusiastic, and you go to the gym. Well, one thing is having the picture in your mind of the beautiful body, but the other is that effort you make. You've got to sweat, you've got to push, your muscles are hurting, it is not comfortable. So everything in us will want to not do it. Oh, I can't be bothered. So that's the grossest level. We all recognize it, and the reason is attachment. So another aspect of the same one, and this is even worse, because this is like tricky, is, oh, I'm too busy, I'll do it later. This is our worst crime, and it's like it sounds like virtue. So we put it off. This is the worst crime we all have. The Lamas say that when we die, one of the most painful things of the memory of our life is when we didn't make effort. We couldn't be bothered, and now it's too late, you know. This is very powerful. Don't feel like guilty. Look at it, analyze it. So, and this is the point. We know the benefits of having chocolate or having sex or having beer or having a house or having a beautiful body. We know those, and they're driven by attachment, so they're easy for us. So take that logic and now put it onto wanting to become less angry, less attached, wanting to visualize, wanting to get concentration, wanting to meditate. It demands unbelievable effort. Of course it does, but you can't think you'll be perfect overnight, and that's what puts us off. And that brings us to the third kind of laziness, which is the one that says, no, I'm not capable of that. Oh, I can't get single point of concentration. Not possible. And it sounds like humility. It sounds like virtue, but it's not. It's the worst laziness at all. So we can achieve it, but we all know, it's one step at a time. So it's not easy. And this is the crime for most of us against ourselves. Don't feel guilty and neurotic, but recognize it. So then if we realize a little bit of effort every day, it doesn't hurt. You're not supposed to do 100 push-ups on the first day at the gym. You do 5. And this is the point. We know this. If you go to the gym and you do your push-ups, or you do your rowing or whatever it is, and the minute it hurts your body, you stop and go, oh, I did my rowing. Well, no, you didn't. You've got to go beyond that comfort zone. You've got to go beyond where your muscles start to hurt. You've got to start sweating and you've got to start breathing deeply. That's the extra effort. So you don't do it until you kill yourself. You do six, you do your 6 push-ups. Then tomorrow you'll do 7. Tomorrow you'll do 8. And before you know it, you're getting better. You're growing. It's incremental, one step at a time. But you've got to start somewhere. Be humble and be confident. And the other one is know the benefits. All the lamas say, if you know the benefit of something, you will do it. And that's, of course, difficult with practice. We can't see them. We can see the benefit when we see the Dalai Lama. We can see Lama Zopa. Oh, they look, but we idealize them. We put them in the sky. Oh, I can't be like that. It's not true. You can, but one step at a time. So this is enormous. And the effort, the joyful effort, they say in the 6 perfections, that's the difference between success and failure. We all know, we admire people who've made effort. I mean, when I think of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, okay, one example. I don't know if he's ever been to Russia. Geshe Lama Kontrok, one of our lamas who lived his last 20 years at Kopan. He was a great meditator, lived up in the mountains, naked, no food, no clothing, no sleep. Lama Zopa said he lived in Vajrayogini's Pure Land. So when you read his story, I'm writing his biography now, it's mind-blowing how capable he was. Because he made this, but since he was a tiny boy, he never stopped making effort. He practiced, he was years and years at Sarah J, doing all the practices, learning all the things, memorizing everything. And by the time he was ready to go to the cave, he had just a few texts, that's it. And he eventually stopped eating. He was like Milarepa, lived on the air, unbelievable effort. But by that time, just bliss. He was able to be meditating 24 hours a day. We can't do that. Start with 5 minutes. But it will grow if you see it. It's a long term, When we understand dependent arising, we'll understand this. But if we think, oh, I can't do that, that's not possible, then you'll never take the first step and you'll never achieve anything. So we've got to be inspired by these stories, not go, oh, I can't do that, which is the worst laziness, It's very powerful. It's a good question. And we all understand it. Listen, I think we should have a 5-minute break. I'll give you a 5-minute break and see if we can summarize some questions, Diana, if there are some more there. And then we'll do a meditation. We'll do purification, or we might do Tara. We'll see how we go, okay? Thank you, people. 5-minute break. Hello. I'm back. Okay, people. Here we go. I'm back in now. Were there lots of questions, Diana? 27?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions. I packed them in 6 groups because several people asked almost the same questions, but with details, with practical details that they need for their practice.
Okay, fantastic. So hang on, Diana, hang on. Just say to the people that you've done this and that I wish I could answer everyone individually, and that I hope by doing this we can answer everyone's questions. I hope so. Just let me know.
Рабина попросила вопросы немножко упаковать как-то, поэтому я их просто по темам разложила, но я стараюсь каждую деталь каждого человека, то есть вложить, чтобы на все в итоге ответили. И Рабина надеется, что такой подход нам поможет. Конечно, она бы хотела вам ответить всем лично, но у нас недостаточно времени. Посмотрим, может быть, получится все.
Okay, go on.
So, do I read them all?
One at a time. One at a time.
One at a time. So, first group of questions. The 2 people asked that if I'm in the middle of anger, how can I stop and concentrate? And the second person also said this, almost the same thing. If how can I meditate in the middle of conflict? For example, if I'm fighting with my wife, how can I concentrate? Should I visualize Buddha, or what is the method of this?
Exactly. It's a really good question, and I think we'd probably take an hour to answer it properly, so I'll try and summarize. But the implication of this question is very powerful. Okay, so that question is like asking me, Okay, imagine the scenario. I'm sure I've said this to you before, but listen to this. It's a very powerful analogy. Imagine the scenario in which you've got a brand new car, but you've never heard of the concept of car mechanics. You've never heard of a car deteriorating. You've never heard of people who fix cars. You've never heard of maintenance. Imagine that. So what would you do? You just think of your car as self-existent. You'd never pay attention to it, and you drive it and you drive it and you drive it. You're not paying attention to the wheels wobbling. You're not paying attention to the strange sounds. You never pay attention. And then there you are at 150 kilometers an hour on the freeway, and suddenly you notice your wheels are falling off, and you say, oh, what will I do? My wheels are falling off. Well, that is exactly that question. In the middle of a fight with your husband, in the middle of a fight with your mother, in the middle of it, and you suddenly are noticing, oh, wow, I'm angry. What will I do? But I'm sorry, it's too late. I don't mean you can't do something, but that's our tragedy is in the modern world, modern psychology. This is our approach. We wait until we are going crazy. We wait until we want to kill ourselves or our husband before we go to the therapist, before we think of going to the mechanic. But the Buddha has this brilliant attitude. He says he's got techniques that we should start at the time we're born, at the time we're a child, to learn to control our body, learn to control our speech, and then learn to control our mind. And in other words, as soon as you notice the wheels just wobbling, you rush to the mechanic and you get maintenance, and then you can have a car that will last you 30 years and the wheels will never fall off. Well, literally, this is the point in Buddhism, and we don't get this in our culture, that if we started learning early, how to control our body, how to control our speech, not just vomiting out whatever we feel, but controlling it, harnessing it, and then learning meditation, and then learning to notice our thoughts and feelings before that you want to scream, before you want to kill yourself or kill your husband. This is the point. So, okay, what can you do at 150 kilometers an hour? Well, damage control is about the best. And if you survive it, you hope that you will learn the lesson of going back to basics and realizing I've got to learn to control my body, my speech, and my mind. I've got to learn to be proactive and learn to and then you will never, ever have your wheels fall off. You won't even ever have a fight with your husband. That's astonishing for us in our culture, but that's what we're capable of. So I hope that answers the question. So if you're in the middle of the fight, the best you can do, okay, another way to answer that question. If you are going at 150 kilometers an hour, and you notice your wheels are falling off, the answer to the question, what will I do, is dependent upon how long you've been driving a car. If you've only driven a car for one day, you can't do much. If you've been driving cars for 50 years, you can learn to be wise because you're skillful and you can get a bit of focus and you'll navigate that crash and you maybe will survive. The same with your husband. If you already got to the point where you forgot to control your speech and you're vomiting out your angry feelings and then you catch your mind, that's dependent on how much work you've done internally. If you've never looked at your mind before, there's nothing you can do. It won't even occur to you. But if you've done some practice and you do get to the point where you're actually having the fight because you're not that good at practice yet, you might just notice you're angry and you might even try and control yourself. But by the time you're going 150 kilometers an hour, it's pretty hard. So get the point. This is a powerful point, and this is the commonest question we all ask, because in our culture we don't have methods for maintenance of our mind. We don't have preventative methods. We only have curative. In other words, we only think there's a problem when you want to kill yourself or kill your husband, and then you go to the therapist, or then you take a pill. That's just bizarre. It's completely ignorant, and that's our culture, unfortunately. So I hope that makes sense. Very powerful, and it's the commonest question everybody in every country asks the same, because that's our view about the mind, Because why? Because we don't pay attention to what is going on in our mind until it's out the mouth. That's the tragedy of our culture. That's why we have such serious mental problems. That's why we get depressed and go crazy, because we don't pay attention to our mind. Tibetan's point here, until it's out the mouth. You don't pay attention to your mind until you are inert in bed from profound depression, because we only pay attention when it's becoming, the body is involved. That's the point. So this is the skill that Buddha gives us, to learn to pay attention to our thoughts before they become emotions. This is, I swear to you, if we can do this, you will navigate your life beautifully and you will never have the wheels falling off. This is the whole point of Buddhist practice. Control your body, your speech, and your mind. That's the whole point of Buddhist practice. So start where we can, and just start now. Slowly, slowly, What else, Diana?
The next question is from Dinara, whom you know already.
Yeah.
She asks, she says that concentration on my own mind is quite painful because of many thoughts, but visualization is much easier for me. So which type of meditation should I prefer in my practice?
You must do both. The aim isn't to feel good, and the aim isn't to make it easy. The point is, we need to look at our mind, dear Nadara. Of course it's uncomfortable because you don't like seeing the shitty stuff in your mind. Well, honey, if you can't see the shitty stuff in your mind, if you can't see your anger and your jealousy and your depression, how can you fix it? If you can't locate the problem, how can you solve it? So we need to have the courage to look into our shitty mind and be glad to see it, because now you know you can solve it. So be happy, change your view. In other words, there's an assumption in your question, as long as it feels good, it must be okay. Rubbish. It's because it's not comfortable seeing our mind. As a therapist friend of mine, who's a dependent Buddhist, says it's like having your hands in your own shit. But you've got to enjoy having your hands in your own shit. You've got to enjoy tasting your own vomit. That's because then you can identify the problem, not just space out and feel nice. That's what people think of as meditation. No, Dinara, wrong. Are you hearing me? Nod, Dinara. Good. I hope she's nodding. Okay, everybody, we've got to have the courage to see our minds. But the more we understand that stuff, the delusions don't define us, the more courage we will have to see it. The only reason it's so painful is because we think this is who I am and we can't stand the pain. This is wrong view. Next question.
Next is about, so when the person asks precision maybe. So when we visualize Buddha, we also visualize. Do we think that the qualities of Buddha become ours?
That's the reason. The only reason you concentrate on the video of Federer and practice replicating Federer is so you can become Federer. You're Federer. That's the whole point. Yes, that's exactly the point. That's the only reason you do these visualizations, so you can become the Buddha. Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's the point.
There is someone also who says that visualization are not good for him because the many attributes of deities distract him. So can he use something else for that?
Of course you can in general, but I don't want to force you to want to do them. But what you mean by distracting is a very interesting point. So if you can please kindly put your question to that. What do you mean by distracted? Distracted from what? If your purpose is just to get concentration, then you won't do it. But if your purpose is to use your concentration, to become like Federer, you must watch the details. You must visualize Federer and repeat what he's doing. So when you say distraction, from what? If you're concentrating, I agree with you, because there's two modes of meditation. One is non-discursive, focusing, and then you use that focus to then do the analysis, then do the visualizing, then do the thinking. That's different. So distracting from what I think you're assuming is concentration, but they're two separate modes. Go on. What next?
The next is what are we supposed to think when, for example, we visualize Buddhas or some deity and then we dissolve it into ourselves?
Yeah.
We just do that, or we're supposed to do something mentally also?
Oh, there's so much more to it. These are just a very simple. I think we'll finish the day with, say, a meditation on Tara as an example, but it's a very simple example of this type of approach. In some of the deity practices, they're really sophisticated, and there's logic to all of it, but it seems a bit abstract to us. We'll do a very simple version of it. So the essence of it is this. The reason you look at the video of Federer, the reason you look exactly what he's doing, the only reason isn't just to praise him and think, isn't he handsome? The reason is so you can become like that. You practice becoming like Federer, becoming your own Federer. So the method here is, and it's all based on understanding emptiness, it's very marvelous. Because nothing has an inherent nature, including oneself, and because Tara has no inherent nature either, so you start the meditation very simply by visualizing the Buddha out there. But you're thinking of it as like a mirror image of your potential, like Federer. And so then you visualize it, you do various practices, you create merit, you make an offering, you do all these meritorious practices, accumulating virtue in relation to Buddha-tara. And of course, the crucial thing here, the added component, which I haven't discussed at all, is that you visualize that Tara is your guru. That's your Lama. It makes it very personal. And I'll go into this in a minute. I'll describe this in a minute, the whole business of the guru and the Buddha being the same. It's quite odd for us initially, but I'll explain it. So then, of course, that makes it personal. So then you visualize all these different things. You visualize offering to Tara, you make a mandala offering, you make requests, you make all these things. That's where you create merit. And then at some point in the meditation, keeping it simple, you visualize the different ways of doing it. She comes to your crown, she dissolves into light, she absorbs into you, and then you meditate on you visualize yourself and Tara merging, becoming one. And then you meditate on the emptiness of that. And then eventually, when you have empowerment, you then visualize out of that emptiness, you manifest yourself as Tara. So the whole process, Buddha's out there, and then you bring her inside you, and you meditate on emptiness of it, and then because you've got no inherent nature, and Tara's not inherent either, and then out of that emptiness, you then imagine, I am now Tara. This is a method for becoming Tara exactly. But that's a simple example of it. But that's the principle behind all of it.
Tras de todo esto.
There's also a question with what kind of thought should I start my day?
Oh, a million ways, but if you got the essence of the whole path, it's wisdom and compassion.
De qué forma
So you wake up, there's different things. You can wake up in the morning, always the first one, to apply impermanence. You wake up in the morning, and because we all grasp at ourselves as permanent, we all don't think I'm impermanent. We wake up and think, oh God, another day, No, wake up and go, wow, I can't believe it. My petrol tank of morality hasn't run out yet. I'm still alive. This is incredible. That's applying impermanence straight away, because we are impermanent. One day we will die. We don't know which day, but because we can't stand the thought of dying, we really know intellectually we're not permanent, but in our guts we feel we are. We really believe if someone said you'll die today, we will laugh, So we believe we're permanent. So wake up in the morning, first thing, go, I can't believe it, I'm still alive. How amazing. And then you go, what's my action? Well, I'm going to make the most of today. I'm going to try and control my body, control my speech, control my mind. You hop out of bed, you do some practice, and you go from there. And there's other things you can do. It depends on certain prayers you like, certain mantras, but starting with impermanence is very powerful. You get a wake-up call, then you make the most of that day. And then you do some practice in the morning, you live your day as best you can, and then the end of the day you should do purification practice. And we'll do that before we finish this series of talks as well. We'll do the 4 opponent powers meditation. We'll go into that. As Lama Zopa says, we're insane not to do the 4 opponent powers, not to do the purification practice every day. We'll do that at some point. What else? Diana.
And there's also a question, when we are in a retreat and we are meditating for a long, long while, sometimes our body becomes crazy and it aches and I want to move, but I'm in a retreat. What should I do? How can I...
We do have, there are different approaches. If you go to a Zen center, part of the discipline is to not move, But that's not necessarily the point. The one approach to it is a more gentle approach, is you've got to be comfortable. If you're sitting there and you're trying, the goal is to try and learn to sit as long as possible, then okay, do that. But that's not the goal of your meditation. If you can sit cross-legged and you can get beyond the pain because you go to, you get to a subtle level, wonderful. But if you can't, please be practical. Don't sit there agonizing and then you never do any meditating. So be practical. Sit in a chair, Do whatever you can. The mind is the point. The mind is the point. The mind is the point. Come on. It's not police. No one's trying to be a policeman here. The mind is the point. Do what you can. Of course, if you want to try the discipline of learning to sit in cross-legged, that's good. Try and do it and see the pain as empty if you can. But if you can't, don't force yourself. It's absurd. There's no rule. It's not like you try to pass an exam in pain, It's ridiculous. Come on, please, be practical. And who cares what other people think? Don't worry about that. What else? Diana.
There's also a very personal question for you. How actually did you feel about leaving your social image, because you're a beautiful woman, but you change your the way you look. You actually you left everything. So how can we also have the same intention to leave this image of ourselves? For example, for me, it's a woman who asks, so how can I also be free from this image, this social image?
No, I understand. Well, I mean, my path, since little girl, I was brought up a Catholic in Australia, in Melbourne. There were 7 kids in the family, and I was educated in a Catholic convent for 12 years. But we went to Mass, as little children. And I mean, it's just, if I look back and if I take a Buddhist view of this, then obviously I've got the karmic connection with this. I mean, remember the moment I saw the priest at Mass? I must have been a little girl. I announced at home, I was so excited, I'm going to become a priest, I said. I just recognized it as my job. So it's obvious I've got this karmic connection with this path, okay? So then, of course, they told me I'm not a boy, so I can't be a priest. So I thought, oh, okay, I'll be a nun. So I used to go to Mass every day, and I was the naughtiest girl. I mean, I kept it all to myself. My other sisters didn't think like this. I just thought everybody thought about God all the time. But I was naughty. I was the naughtiest kid in the family, the naughtiest kid at school, always in trouble, always rebellious. But these 2 parts of me, I kind of lived with them, So, I mean, as I got older, then I was 13, I was on my knees begging my mother, let me be a nun, like this holy French little nun who became a nun when she was 14, and she suffered for God. And I was naughty at the same time. My mother sent me to boarding school, but I used to go to Mass every morning at school. So, I mean, then by the time I was 19, I was a hippie, it was the 60s, so I decided, goodbye God, hello boys. So I moved my kind of views of God and the universe about creator and everything into radical, I was hippie, then radical left, and then demonstrations in London, all that business. So going through the political stages of trying to find the reason why there was suffering on the planet. So that was always what drove me. I mean, I'm not trying to say I'm not vain. I mean, I'm always worried about my body. I used to be too fat and too thin. I see the photos of myself. I look back, I thought I was ugly, all these things, like typical. But by the time I got to sort of through my 10 years of very strong political activity, I was trying to find a way to see the world. Of course, at the same time, trying to find love and trying to put my body in a nice way and have my hair this way and that way, but I never cared that much. And then I think what drove me more than anything, and I'm not trying to sound like a saint, was looking for a way to see the world. And then when I was about 31, I'm back in Australia after 10 years of being away, in Europe and in America. I've been doing martial arts and doing my political activity. And then I met the Lamas. I met Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa, So kind of, by that, even before that, I remember vividly one moment, I realised I didn't want to have boyfriends or girlfriends anymore. I mean, I was into boys and I was into girls, whatever. Then I realised I didn't want any of that. I never wanted to have a husband. I never wanted to have children. I never wanted to have a wife. I never wanted to live in the same house as somebody. I mean, it would give me I'd kind of have a panic attack living in the same bed as one person. I never wanted that, ever, ever, ever. It was horrible. I wanted freedom more than anything. So, of course, I was worried about how I looked, but the thing that drove me more was this wish to, I'm not trying to sound noble, a way to understand the world. So then I met these lamas, Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa, when I was 31, and I knew I'd found my path. It was difficult coming to terms with it, but I'd found my path, and it was just clear to me, oh, that's the kind of nun I want to be. So it was just the next step. It was evident. It wasn't. So I didn't think of it like I'm giving up things. I mean, even over my stages, I knew I gave up boys, I gave up girls, I gave up sex, I gave up cigarettes, I gave up drugs, I gave up alcohol. So by the time I met the lamas, what else is there to give up? I never wanted babies anyway. I never wanted to live in a house with anybody. I didn't give up those things. I never wanted them. So then I finally, at the age of 31, I found where I wanted to be, So shaved my head. Nothing wrong with that. It was easy. Nothing. Next step. It was no big drama for me. So it's kind of incremental. Depends on who we are, And for some of us, we don't have to. I mean, in the end, whether you're a nun looking with a bald head and 14th century Tibetan robes, or whether you're a mother with 7 children, the job is the same, The job is the same, to control our body, control our speech, and control our mind. And that's up to us what condition we found the karma with to do that job, And all of us have to give up attachment. I mean, giving up attachment to our body is the hardest job anyway. So it's your own progress, it's your own approach, it's what drives us. So anyway, all I can do is tell you the stages I went through. If that's any use to you, I hope so. I hope that helps you. The job's the same. And in the end, it's also interesting, if you're on the Bodhisattva path, then, on the one hand, you get the first stages of practice, you learn to give up attachment to how you look. You learn to give up attachment to food and things. The aim is that. But then on the Bodhisattva path, you're actually there for others. So I always remember that famous Hollywood actress, Grace Kelly. I remember this blew my mind. Before I became a Buddhist, she said, of course I have to look beautiful. People have to look at me. So in other words, when you get to the Bodhisattva path, the reason you don't chuck out the baby with the bathwater and walk around all smelly and picking your nose in public. Now you realize you're existing for others. So yes, look beautiful. Put your lipstick on. Put your best dress on. But it's not from attachment anymore. It's to make others happy. That's a very different motivation. But you've got to go through the first stages of giving up, of renunciation first. So even as a nun, you know, Lama Yeshe would tell us off back in the beginning for the nuns and monks looking ugly. You're looking smelly. He told me I stank like a toilet. When I was his attendant one week, he told me I stank like a toilet. I got a big shock, and I did. I didn't take care of my body. So that's very rude, you know. I should look like a nice nun, not looking ugly and have my hair all poking out. If I'm in the mountains where no one looks at me, that's different. But you got to look nice for other people. That's Bodhisattva. That's great. So if I shave my hair wrong, I'll fix it. But of course, no attachment to it. But there's a long way to go. We've all got attachment. We've all got attachment to our body, you know. Hope that's useful information for you. What else, Diana? We'll do a meditation soon. Many more questions? Then we'll finish with the meditation.
Что, есть еще вопросы, или мы закончим медитацию? No, I think...
Huh?
I think it's all.
That's all?
I don't
Okay,
know.
wonderful. But we can have more. There's more time. So let's now just do our little meditation on Tara. So first of all, let's go through the position. We'll go through the position of the body again, just to get it right if we can. There's about 7 or 8 points. Okay, do our best. So the first one is, as His Holiness says, and I think I said this before, if we can sit in full lotus position, even for a minute, at the beginning of our session, this is so auspicious, because when we get to the more advanced practices in highest Tantra, we need to be in that position in order to go off to the mountains and to the caves and meditate day and night, because, you know, your body will be very stable in that position. But if you can't, of course, don't worry. But it's very auspicious to start your session. If you can't do that, have one leg on the other thigh. If you can't do that, have ordinary cross-legged. If you can't do that, sit in a chair. Whatever is helpful, okay, whatever's useful. Now, second point, if you are sitting cross-legged, and if you're very flexible and you can do full lotus, you just have a cushion just under your coccyx to slightly thrust you up and slightly forward. It's very balanced. But if you can't, then you get a cushion that suits you. You've got to find what works for you. But if you're in a chair, the crucial thing is, because this is bringing to about 7 points, this is the next point, the back should be upright. So clearly if you're sitting cross-legged, you can't slump because you'll fall over. But if you're sitting in a chair, don't slump into the back of the chair. Sit up upright, okay? You don't sit into the back of a chair because your body slumps and then your mind gets sluggish. So hold yourself upright. Have your feet firmly on the ground, okay? If you're sitting in a chair. The next one, and that's why if you're sitting in a couch, you can be so comfortable you just go to sleep. So it's best to be upright. The next point is your hands. So the classic position we're taught, the mudra, is left underneath like this, right on top, thumbs touching. And if you can't, and they're not, otherwise don't worry, just put them in your lap. People have different positions, the yogis as well. The third one is, you know, your bottom, your legs, your hands, your back. They say to have your shoulders upright but not tense. Well, I would add to that, don't have your abdomen. We squeeze our abdomen so tight, because we don't like looking fat, I think. So relax your muscles. So keep your body upright, but flop your muscles. This is a really good combination. Then your head is the main one. Slightly tilted forward, your chin tucked in, jaw relaxed, lips apart, and then the tip of your tongue resting behind the top teeth, just near the palate. All of this is coming from the great yogis over the centuries, and this has been found by all the yogis who meditate for a long time, that it means you don't have to swallow your spit or you don't dribble. It's very interesting. Then finally your eyes. Again, all the great meditators who meditate all day, in order to keep their mind very sharp, and because their concentration is very good, they keep their eyes open because the light comes in and makes you very sharp. But most of us won't have good concentration because we're so distracted. So have your eyes lightly closed, but beneath your eyelids, having your eyes looking down, beneath your eyelids, looking down as if you're looking along your nose towards the ground. So that's the classic position, okay? Now settle into that. But remember, your body doesn't meditate, so don't get all caught up in your body, you know. Forget about your body now. The reason your body is like this is because it's the most conducive that all the great yogis have found in order for the mind to do its job. Okay. So the first thing we'll do is 3 quality minutes of focusing our mind. And what we're going to focus on is the breath. It's very simple. So first, just take a couple of breaths. Don't breathe forcefully, but take complete breaths all the way down to your abdomen. But just take a couple of breaths first and locate the sensation of the concentration. So that will be the sensation at the tip of your nose as you breathe in and out. And you'll notice it's slightly different from in to out. It's slightly different, but that's the general focal point. So locate that first. Take a couple of breaths. Okay, so now what we're going to do, and I'll explain it first. It's a simple thing we're trying to do. Don't make it complicated. 1, this is not a relaxation technique. 2, there's 3 minutes. 2, it is not to make the thoughts go away. 3, it is not to get a nice feeling. It's not to have a vision. None of that. It's simply a training. You're training yourself to pay attention. Honestly, that's it. So naturally we can't pay attention properly because our thoughts are crazy. So let them come and let them go. That's the skill. That's the key to success. Don't want them to go away. That's foolish. So you simply pay attention to that breath. You anchor your attention to the breath. Now, another part of your mind is called mindfulness. As soon as this part of watching, the mindfulness watching, as soon as it notices the attention wandering off, you bring the mind back to the breath. Then you wander off again, you bring your mind back to the breath. And you wander off again, you bring your mind back to the breath. That's the key to success. Just spacing out is not meditation. That's just called spacing out. So you just simply adjust your mind. It doesn't matter how many times you do that. That's the training. You simply pay attention to the breath. And with determination, for this 3 minutes, I'm going to pay attention to the breath. Like as if you're driving at 150 kilometers an hour, there's no way in the universe you're going to lose concentration, are you? Have that sense of urgency. But keep your mind relaxed as well. But watch the breath. That's it. 3 minutes. Just bring your mind back to the breath. Just keep the mind sharp, not spaced out. So that's about 3 minutes. So with this focused mind, a little bit focused, we now will do this visualization. So if you're not familiar with it, do your best. And if you are, then just, we do our best. So what we're going to visualize is a particular manifestation of Buddha mind. And it's the female Buddha called Tara. So she's, there's 3 essential qualities of a Buddha. One is compassion, and that's represented by Chenrezig. One is wisdom, and that's represented by Manjushri. And the third is it's the compassion that wants to help others. It's the wisdom to know how. But the third is the crucial one. It's the action, the ability to do so, the power to do so. So Tara represents that energy. Action, success, cut through the obstacles, make things happen, confidence, courage, all those qualities. And we all need that badly, So in this case, this energy is depicted as female, kind of quick energy, sharp, quick energy. So she's in the Bodhisattva aspect. If you're not familiar, just do your best, don't worry. So she's sitting in the sky about eye level, and she's on a multicolored lotus. And on that lotus, you imagine a flat moon disk and sun disk, like 2 flat cushions. And they represent wisdom and compassion. Then she's sitting in this Bodhisattva aspect, and she's got a green light body, which is like action energy, quick action, She's in this Bodhisattva style with multicolored sort of silken clothes. You see her legs, and her left leg is drawn in, like in meditation, but her right leg is out, resting kind of in a relaxed pose on another little multicolored lotus. And this relaxed pose is like her action energy. She's sort of showing that she's happy to hop up to help others. That's her energy. So she's got the same qualities as all the Buddhas, but it's like playing a role. So she looks like this particular aspect. All the Buddhas have got the same qualities, but they show different aspects. So hers is this action energy. And whether we're girls or boys makes no difference. We all need this, So then she's her left hand is in her, she's got them silken clothes, multicolored clothes around her legs. And then upper part of her body, you usually see it. She's got, her chest is naked. She's got these gorgeous breasts. And sometimes she has this shawl around her shoulders, but you can see her body. And this Bodhisattva style. And then her face is very gorgeous, very beautiful, loving, compassionate. And she's got this 5-pointed crown on her head. And her hair is partially held up in a top knot. And you imagine the rest of her hair is down her back. Everything is crystal clear. It's not like a statue. It's all made of light. Very radiant, making the mind very happy. And then she's decorated in the Bodhisattva style, with jewelry around her throat, her ears, her upper arms, her wrists, and her ankles. If you've seen pictures, you'll be familiar. But just think of it as this radiant light. And the key point is to buy into the meaning of this visualization. She represents all the qualities of a Buddha, but the particular aspect is this power, action, confidence, courage to cut through the obstacles, to have courage to go beyond the fears, beyond the dramas. In fact, she's known, her name, Tara, or in Tibetan Drolma, is liberator. And she's known as the liberator from the fears of samsara. So she's courage energy, action energy. We need this so badly, every one of us, And think of her like a mirror image of of all this. She's showing us what we can become. Like looking at the video of Federer, he's showing us what we can become. That's the idea. Now, if you have a spiritual teacher, we can have many. If you have a root teacher, the one you feel closest to, the one you feel helps you most, and each of us is different in that way. Whoever your main lama, your main guru, your main spiritual teacher is, you visualize, you imagine their mind. No, they're manifesting as Tara for your benefit, you know. Think like this. It makes it very personal for us. That my Lama is manifesting as Tara to show me how I can become Tara, how I can purify my mind, how I can become a Buddha. So it makes it very personal. Imagine this. So now we imagine, we'll do a very simple visualization. We're going to purify our body, speech, and mind. We have body, we have speech, and we have mind. So the first level, we imagine now from her brow, she's very happily, so compassionately, sends ray. Oh no, sorry, I didn't finish the visualization. Please forgive me. So she's sitting there with her leg drawn in, her right leg out, resting on a little multicolored lotus. Her face is gorgeous, we've checked that, her clothes, but her hands, her right hand is on her right knee with the palm upwards, fingers pointing out. And this is called the gesture or the mudra. It's like very generous. She's kind of giving, you know, giving. And she's holding between her ring finger and thumb the stem of a blue upala flower that blooms at her right ear. You just imagine this. Doesn't matter if you can't see it, just imagine. Her left hand is at her heart with the fingers pointing up in the mudra of the 3 jewels, I think. I always forget. And she's holding here, between the thumb and ring finger, the stem of another blue upala flower, like a lotus, a blue lotus, that blooms at her left ear. So just there she's sitting there, imagine it, totally gorgeous, made of light, so blissful, just makes your mind happy. And she's looking at you with incredible love, compassion, wanting only to benefit you. That's her purpose. And has the infinite wisdom to know how, and the power to do so. So now from her brow, wanting only to help us, she sends these powerful, radiant laser beams of white light that penetrate our brow and instantly fill us. And first of all, what they do is they first purify all this, the pain and misery of this body of ours. Sometimes we feel it's like a heavy bag of bones, isn't it? Lugging it around throughout our life. Imagine it all this white light fills us and purifies all the heaviness, all the sickness, all the problems of our body. But also, crucially, you imagine this white light filling us purifies all the karmic imprints of any actions we've ever done in this life and in infinite past lives of harming others with our bodies. All the killing, all the stealing, all the sexual misconduct. Especially as animals. I mean, animals harm billions of, just live their lives in incredible fear, harming each other. So all our countless past lives of humans and animals of harming others. All of these karmic imprints totally purified. Imagine this, full of this blissful white light. And now she sends again radiant laser beams of white light from her brow that penetrate our brow and fill us completely. So now that all the negativity is gone, you imagine this fills us with our potential, the potential first right now with this body, the potential to only benefit others. Can you imagine this? Full of this marvelous potential, such that whoever sees us, hears us, touches us, smells us, tastes us, all the creatures, all the animals, all the humans, just in this life, will be only benefited. Can you imagine this? Impossible to harm again. Imagine this. But not only that, filling us with this marvelous potential of a Buddha, eventually, to be able to manifest our mind in billions of forms throughout all the universes to benefit all the sentient beings. Can you imagine this potential? Full of this marvelous potential to benefit others with our bodies. Full of this blissful white light. So now Lama Chenrezig, Lama Tara so compassionately sends from her throat chakra radiant beams of red light, red laser light beams that penetrate our throat and instantly fill us. So here, first of all, purifying all the rubbish of our speech. Sometimes we feel we can't say what we want properly, we say all the wrong words, we get confused, or all the negative speech of lying, not even lying, but speculating. We all want to say the right thing. We always want to be seen to say the right answer. So we blurt out words that we're not even sure are true, misleading people, all of that. And all the harsh speech, all the abusive speech, all the rabbiting on about nothing, just blah, 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 and all the bad mouthing behind backs. That's our favorite. It's almost like a virtue. We talk about the people at work, we talk about the people at home, we talk about the politicians. We never stop. Negativity, pouring out our mouths. So imagine all of this and all the imprints from this. And this is, of course, as humans. Animals don't do much problems with their speech. They shout a bit, scare you. But we're so clever as humans. So all the negative, all the imprints of the actions we've done with our speech since beginningless time to harm sentient beings, totally eradicated by this blissful red laser light beams, filling us completely, purifying all that negativity. How fantastic. Full of this red light. Again, Lama Tara so kindly sends these radiant beams of red light from her throat that penetrate our throat, and this time with our potential. This is the point, That such now that all the delusions have gone, we now have what's called the power of speech. And this is the most precious gift of the Buddha. You can look at the Buddha for 57 years, but if he doesn't open his mouth, if she doesn't open her mouth and teach us, what good is she? We can't see her mind. We can't see the Buddha's mind. So we have this power. So we have now the power of speech. And think of your daily life. We need speech. We want people to, if we walk into a shop and we ask for something, we want the person to give it to us. If we tell a person something, we want them to believe us. If we've got people at work we have to tell what to do, we want them to do out their job. So speech is incredibly powerful. So we need to purify our speech and make our speech powerful, valid. So we imagine now we've got the power such that any sound we utter, even saying good morning, even our laugh, will benefit whoever hears us. Think of this. This is amazing. All the ants, all the birds, all the humans. How incredible. Our speech is so powerful. Now imagine, and therefore beneficial. Imagine this. Full of this marvelous potential, our own potential. The power of speech, this radiant red light. So now Lama Tara, this time sends from her heart chakra in the center of her chest, powerful laser beams of blue light, blue like the sky, that penetrate our heart and fill us instantly, and now instantly annihilate the root of the problem, the root of all the dramas of our body and speech, the root of all our suffering is the ridiculous delusions in our mind, all the ridiculous misconceptions. The ego grasping that clings to the intrinsic me, then which gives rise to this bottomless pit of hunger, emotional hunger, attachment to get what the I wants, and then the panic attack of anger, upset, frustration, irritation, despair and depression, this spectrum of aversion, all when it doesn't get what it wants, and all the other dramas as a result of this. All of this imagine, annihilated, full of this blissful blue light. All the nonsense gone. Imagine this. So now imagine we've achieved liberation. Now we've achieved our own nirvana, our own liberation from suffering. But we can do more. We can become a Buddha. We can remove even the subtlest imprints, what they call the obstacles to our omniscience, which cause us to become a Buddha on the Mahayana path. So now we visualize Lama Tara so compassionately sends from the three places simultaneously, white from the brow, red from her throat, and blue from her heart, that enter our three places simultaneously, and this time removing even these subtlest imprints, even these obstacles to omniscience. Imagine this. And we become a Buddha. Imagine this. Imagine this. So blissful. Full of these three lights. So now you imagine that the lotus that Lama Tara is sitting on and the lotus that her right leg is resting on just dissolve into light up into her body. Imagine this. And then you imagine she very happily comes to sit above our crowns, facing the same way as us. Imagine that. And then you imagine she dissolves into green light and dissolves through our crown. And then you imagine that the energy of the Guru's body, speech and mind, the energy of Tara's body, speech and mind, and the energy of your body, speech and mind become completely one. They merge. As Lama Yeshe says, union, oneness. Just imagine this. Guru, Tara, me, same thing. Imagine this. Body, speech and mind. And then imagine you kind of just expand to fill the universe. Just imagine. Expand to fill the universe. And then just a couple of minutes, no thoughts. As vast as space. Blissful, clear, vast. No thoughts. So now we imagine, now we think, well, now I've become the Buddha, but what good is this to sentient beings? I've become a Buddha out of compassion, so I've got to manifest to benefit them. I've got to benefit sentient beings. So just to finish, a couple of minutes, we just now imagine all sentient beings. We imagine in front of us the objects of our aversion, who are the enemies, ones we don't like, in front of us. Even think of a couple of them, people you don't like, the objects of our aversion, our anger. Then to the left, our beloveds, the objects of our attachment. To the left, even just one. Then to the right and everywhere else, all the third category of sentient beings, the strangers, the objects of our indifference. So a friend is somebody by definition we have attachment for, but who fulfills our needs, so therefore we love them. We have an enemy who is by definition a person who's harmed us, so we don't have a love for them. And then the third category, who have neither harmed us nor helped us, the strangers, we couldn't care less about them. This is the whole universe. So imagine the strangers to the right, but also to the left, to the right, in front of you, behind you, above you, below you, and in front of you, as far as the horizon goes. The whole of space full of all these sentient beings. In the form of humans, which is the form they can get enlightened in, all the realms of existence, but the form of humans. So now just thinking, they all want to be happy, they all do not want suffering. They all got potential, just like me, to become Buddha. So what choice now that I'm Buddha? I must benefit them. No choice. So just imagine, just do it quickly to finish. Billions of tiny green taras come out of your heart and enter into the enemies, the friends and the strangers, pervading space. Front, above, behind, below. And you imagine it takes away all their suffering and it gives them all their happiness and they turn into Tara themselves. You just imagine this, want this. Even just the thought is amazing. And we'll just sing a few Tara mantras as we visualize this. And the sound of the mantra is simply a sound visualization, a sound manifestation of the same energy, same thing, Tara energy, And imagine as the sound goes out, wherever we are, it goes out into the environment and it blesses every being, blesses all these beings, as well as we send Taras into them and turning them into Tara. Om Tare Tu Svaha. 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 And now we imagine all these transformed Taras dissolve into green light from the whole universe and all dissolve into us, enhancing even more brilliantly our own Tara nature. Imagine this. So then we finish, okay, with the 4 immeasurable thoughts, the marvelous Bodhisattva attitude. So we just think how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings could abide in equanimity, free of attachment, aversion, and ignorance. May they abide so. And this is the next one, is the brave attitude of the Bodhisattva. I will make this happen. Please, Lama Tara, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings could be free of suffering and its causes. May they be free. I will make this happen. Please, Lama Tara, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were never parted, or have happiness and its causes. May they have them. I will make this happen. Please, Lama Tara, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were never parted from higher rebirths and liberation's excellent bliss. May they never be parted. I will make this happen. Please, Lama Tara, bless me to be able to do this. And that's it. We're done for today, you people. So the point is, when we remember that everything we think and do and say sows seeds and brings fruits. I mean, can you only imagine these thoughts we've just had are beyond insane. They're unbelievable thoughts. We've imagined the Buddha. We've imagined purifying all our delusions. We've imagined purifying off all our negative karma. We've imagined becoming a Buddha. We've imagined benefiting sentient beings. You see, in our culture, we think, oh, that's just the mind. Who cares? We have no conception. Every thought counts. Then it's stupendous. So some simple meditation like this can be so powerful, so uplifting, you know, that smashes our concrete conception of pathetic self-pity me, who's miserable and ugly and revolting. This is ego, you know. This is amazing. It's so light and so radiant and so blissful. It's like putting atomic bombs under self-pity. It puts atomic bombs under ego grasping. It leaps us towards becoming exactly this. This is how the mind works. Be so happy, people. Be so delighted. So we finish. Goodbye. Jang Chub, Sem Chog Rinpoche, Ma Kye Panam Kye Guchi, Kye Panyam Pa Me Pa Yang, Gong Ne, Gonju, Pelba Shog. And if we have a teacher, then think, may we never develop, even for a moment, wrong views towards the deeds of our most precious gurus. With faith and respect gained from seeing their goodness, may their full inspiration flow into our hearts. And never give up, okay? That's it. Thank you, darlings. Goodbye. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Andre. Thank you. So kind, Diana, my Russian voice. So grateful. Thank you, sweethearts. Much love and goodbye.